I'd like to introduce what Betsy will soon be reading to us, a very short little story from the Gospel of Luke. And in this translation, it doesn't even say the word leper, because the word leper wasn't invented yet. The Hebrew word and the Greek word that translate it literally mean skin disease. Leprosy wasn't figured out until the mid of the 1800s. But this was a disease that caused people's skin to have bumps, itches, ugly-looking rash. And to the Jewish people of Jesus' time, it represented a sign that somehow they weren't clean enough to be in the presence of the holy. It's called ritual purity, which is why the Jews often took baths. A bath is called a mikvah before services. They would not eat certain foods that weren't fit, the Hebrew word kosher, weren't proper. They wouldn't have dinner with people who weren't Jewish. They wouldn't talk with women who were not Jewish in public, etc., etc. The purists, and the Hebrew word for Puritan is Pharisee, had to be looking perfect in order to expect God to connect with them and for them to stand and worship in his presence. So here we have a group of 10, all of which are considered to be lepers, that is, having a skin disease. They were 2 strikes out on them, this group. Number 1 strike was they had visible skin trouble. And if you were a leper, you had to announce whenever you moved near a group of people, "Unclean, unclean, stay away." There was a second strike on one of these 10, the Samaritan. The Samaritans were those who were from the northern kingdom of Israel originally that had been defeated and wiped off the planet by the Babylonians or the Assyrians. They would be to the Jews of Jesus' time much like the Mormons were to Christians 100 years ago. Yeah, they worship the same God, but we don't like the way they got their information and what conclusions they drew from it. So they were looked down on. In fact, their presence was acknowledged by Jesus a number of times. Who is the good rescuer that shows he loves his neighbor? The Good Samaritan. Not the priest or the Levi. So here you have these 10. Jesus heals them. We don't know exactly how, but we do know why and the result. The result was, in Jesus' mind, they were now welcome, not to touch physically, no, but to be equal in value and dignity wherever they went, and treated as a neighbor as well as one treated oneself. So, these people were grateful. They had lived outside the gates, and now they were welcome to come and go. But 9 of them whooshed away and didn't say a word. The Samaritan, who was healed, came back to express his gratitude. And the teaching Jesus leaves him is a summary of what biblical faith is all about. Go on your way. Your faith has healed you. Listen as Betsy reads this for us.
The reading is Luke 17:11 through 19. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men with a skin disease approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourself to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? So where are the other 9? Did none of them return to give glory to God except the foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well."
Thank you. Now I have something I want to do for the young at heart, if there are any among you. And it's based upon that story and the truth about humanity that you can't judge a book by its cover. And if you're going to be judging, judge the way God does, knowing what's on the inside that counts. So, for example, I have a book here. I'll show it to our techie. By the cover, can you figure out what's inside? I couldn't either. Well, I opened it up. The book is entitled Overdrive, Bill Gates and the Race to Control Cyberspace. Who would have thunk from this plain cover? You're welcome to it if you'd like it. You probably read it. I don't know. You haven't. Well, here's another one. Let me move back a little bit. It seems that human beings in their DNA are blessed/cursed with always wanting to be in the front row of a bus, the middle of the road in terms of arguments, and the back of the church when it's worship time. So I'm moving to the back a little bit here. Could you tell what this is inside?
No idea.
Thank you, because I couldn't either. So let me open it up and see if it's of any use to us human beings. Let's see, it says, Encounter with Anthropology. That's got to be pretty useful if you happen to be a human like me. You're welcome to it if you'd like it. Okay. Okay. I'm going to leave it up on the table after church is over. Now, given the DNA that inflicts us all, I'm going to the back. Jerry, Lemoyne, can you tell what's inside this blue cover? Would you like to know? The University of Michigan, A Pictorial History. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I kind of figured that might go over back there. I have the dust cover if you want it. It'll be in this bag. But my feeling is you'll probably get your hand oil all over it before any dust lands on it. All right. So, don't judge a book by its cover. Judge the way God does. And oftentimes that's invisible on the outside, especially when we deem someone to be unclean, unworthy, of the opposite, one who thinks otherwise, whatever the issue may be. The reason I'm focused this week, this month, this season, is because Thanksgiving and Christmas are coming, when we cannot resist getting together, even with relatives and friends that we don't see all year long and maybe aren't that comfortable being around. Well, multiply that by leprosy, or having a position on which your votes would cancel out each other. And the problem is, it makes us sick to live that way, to judge that way on the outside. This first came home to me when I read this book, and I'm going to leave it up here if you'd like to borrow it, but I still need it. Eventually it'll end up in the church library. The Anxious Generation. It came out last year, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness, by Jonathan Haidt, New York University Stern Business School, a social psychologist. I got concerned about this as I thought about the upcoming holidays and how even in the most, on the surface, loving families, there are in fact hidden wounds. And that's all we can see when we look at each other. And the effect is it makes you unhealthy, especially kids. This has been since 2012, when the huge volcano of social media erupted and spewed its hot burning lava amongst the generation that was just coming of age. And this has been shown in many places. Most recently, it was the World Happiness Report. It came out late in 2024. The United States, for the first time in decades, has dropped out of the top 20 happiest countries in the world. Now, there's both good news and bad news in that statistic. If you happen to be 60 years of age or older, you are still amongst the top 5 happiest people in the world, in the United States. But if you're age 30 or younger, your rank is 62nd, 62 from the top happiness number. Teen happiness, which had been increasing by this same set of statistics throughout the 1990s and the early 210s, suddenly declined. When? After 2012. The number of American teens reporting that they felt lonely, left out, useless, joyless, abruptly increased the first year that our youth began spending an inordinate amount of time using digital media and connecting up. More than twice as many adolescents suffered from major depression in 2022 than they did in 2011. All the increase happened before COVID in 2020. The U.S. Surgeon General at the time, Vivek Murthy, who later repeated in that office under the Biden administration, declared that teen mental health is the crisis of our time. If you doubt the seductive hold of the internet, consider this practical advice, especially if you're visiting with family and friends over the holidays. If all the bathrooms in the house are occupied and you've been waiting for one to be free, switch off the Wi-Fi. Now, I put a chart in the back for you to look at when you get home. It lists the 7 generations, their birth years, their communication method, and then the one they prefer the most. And it tells all the story right there. The 2 youngest, first generation Z, the Zoomers, born between 97 and 2012, is the first cohort in human history to move its social life onto a social media platform. And it immediately became the loneliest generation on record. What's supposed to connect us did the opposite. And it did so with a mean little hook inside, like inside a juicy worm in a fish's eye. It makes you compare yourself with people who aren't real, who are very superficial, who make you then think, I've got to be like that, and I don't realize it's not real because there it is. And all of a sudden, phew, all this unhappiness and depression begins. Next comes Generation Alpha, those born between 2010 and 2025. And as Jonathan Haidt and many now who have read his book and putting into practice his suggestions, among them not least being Lee County schools, shutting off the use of phones at school, urging people not to let kids have a private social media account until they are in 9th grade. He puts it quite clearly. The upstream cause of youth mental health crisis is the loss of community, actual connections, real relationships. I remember seeing a cartoon that came through recently from some of my friends. It had a picture of Rod Serling, you know, the Twilight Zone creator, staring at the camera, and he says in the caption, "Imagine a world where YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook merge to become known as You-Twit-Face." The leper was the village idiot of the ancient Jewish world. We've had village idiots every year in human history. The word literally means those who have to live outside the gates of the village because nobody wants to connect with them. Social lepers. I like the way Rick Walker put it to me in a conversation. Who are these people who buy into this? Vidiots. Video idiots. But I'm not making fun. I'm calling attention and urging those of us that have any influence to get folks to become connected really, not in situationships, but relationships. Given the profound consequences of loneliness, Vivek Murphy went on, we need to address the same problem of social connection in the same ways we've had to address tobacco use, alcohol addiction, and obesity. What is so striking about this social media presence is that it really puts you in a place that's no place, a dystopia. When you're around somebody who's on their phone engaging in social media, they're not where you are. In fact, I'm not sure they know where they are. They're every place at once. And all the brilliant minds that are behind this technology have come up with these marvelously effective algorithms that constantly dangle that worm and get our attention and make our brain release dopamine so we get the temporary high. Whoa, something new, different, wow, novel, great. And then we get hooked. When we're caught up in internet, social media, we are, frankly, forever elsewhere. And it's hard to become personally involved with each other when somebody's not there. Dr. Turkle, Sherry Turkle, I quoted her in the back too, has done a couple of books, one of them, Alone Together. And in that book, she points out that from the 2012s on, young people especially, mostly turned from talk to text. although some of us older ones still prefer the vibrant interaction of voice to voice. And so she wrote her book, Alone Together. And she said the danger has been that social media has replaced friendship with friending. And that's a gateway drug to chatbox generative AI. A supposedly understanding, compassionate, pleasant-speaking know-it-all who cares about you. I think the irony comes home to all of us who've had the experience and admitted it, that there's such irony in that when you log into a computer program, it asks a human to prove they're not a robot. And yet, that is exactly what we should be doing daily. Prove we're not a robot. The real interfaces are created literally face to face, mouth to ear, not through the machine. For healthy persons, the interaction reveals the presence of a self that recognizes and engages another self. It's truly those kinds of conversations, the most humanizing and human thing that we do together. Well, it's time to move on with our kids and maybe with ourselves. I always like the pepper and salt cartoons in the Wall Street Journal. It has one where these two guys are sitting down over a business lunch, and one says to the other, "It's nice to have a quiet moment to reconnect. Remind me how we know each other." Oh, that's all so common today. The truth of the matter is that faith can heal us. What do you think Jesus meant by that? Especially when thinking about this issue. Faith is choosing to trust with our mind that the most important things we do are create relationships mutually that celebrate both joy and sorrow, good times and bad, remembering the past, hoping for the future, and linking up to go through the present no matter what the situation. That's what life's for. And that's what love is all about. We are made whole. The Greek word in this text is sozo, from which we get the word soterology, saviorness. And faith, pistis. It's not what you believe that's true or false, but who you choose to trust and who you are trustworthy to in response. Your faith has made you well. Isn't that a wonderful thing to celebrate?